The officer sneered. A black man in a luxury car? Must be stolen. Daniel clenched his jaw, the familiar sting of racism cutting deeper than ever before. Daniel Harris adjusted his tuxedo and stepped out into the cool evening air, the applause from the gala hall still resonating in his ears. Tonight had been special, a prestigious awards ceremony celebrating his decades of dedication to judicial reform and equal justice. As a respected federal judge, Daniel had spent his entire career advocating for fairness, tirelessly pushing for accountability within the justice system. Yet, despite his many accomplishments, Daniel knew all too well how quickly perceptions could change based simply on appearance. Approaching the Riverside station, Daniel handed his ticket to a young attendant. The attendant glanced briefly at Daniel, and then at the sleek black luxury sedan parked beneath a softly glowing street lamp. A brief moment of hesitation flickered across the valet's face. "Sir, is this your car?" the valet asked awkwardly, his eyes uncertain. Daniel maintained a polite smile, though internally he felt a familiar sting of disappointment. It wasn't anger, just a weary recognition of a subtle prejudice he'd encountered many times before. "Yes," Daniel responded calmly, extending his hand firmly. "It's mine." The valet quickly recovered, nodded awkwardly, and hurried off to retrieve the vehicle. Daniel watched him go, taking a quiet breath to steady himself. Moments like these reminded him how far society still had to go, despite the speeches and the applause. Sliding behind the wheel, Daniel adjusted his mirrors and exhaled deeply, the weight of the incident still pressing lightly against him. He navigated smoothly onto the road, heading home, eager for rest after an emotionally charged evening. But what Daniel didn't realize was that this minor discomfort would soon pale in comparison to what awaited him just a few blocks ahead. Unbeknownst to Daniel, Officer Laura Bennett had already noticed his vehicle. Sitting in her patrol car, her eyes narrowed suspiciously as she watched the luxury sedan cruise by. Without hesitating, Laura eased out onto the street, following at a cautious distance, already deciding that something wasn't right. Daniel continued homeward, unaware of the cruiser slipping quietly behind him, unaware that his distinguished reputation would soon clash dramatically with Officer Bennett's assumptions. Little did either of them know, their paths were about to intersect in a way that would alter their lives forever. Daniel carefully signaled and pulled his car over to the side of the quiet street, his pulse slightly quickening as the flashing red and blue lights filled his rearview mirror. He remained calm, placing his hands visibly on the steering wheel, a habit he had always maintained out of caution and experience. Officer Laura Bennett exited her patrol car, her footsteps sharp and purposeful as she approached Daniel's window. "License and registration, please," Laura demanded firmly, her tone professional yet slightly cold. Her eyes scanned the interior of the vehicle with an intensity Daniel immediately recognized. "Of course, officer," Daniel replied respectfully, moving slowly and deliberately to reach for his wallet. "May I ask why I've been stopped?" Laura's gaze hardened slightly. "You were driving aggressively back there. I need your documentation." "Now." Daniel hesitated briefly, surprised by her claim. He had been meticulous in his driving, especially tonight. Nonetheless, he calmly handed over his documents. Laura examined them carefully, then glanced suspiciously at Daniel. "Daniel Harris," she read aloud, skepticism in her voice. "Federal judge." Her tone carried disbelief and subtle mockery, implying he couldn't possibly hold such a position. "Yes, ma'am," Daniel responded patiently, meeting her skeptical gaze without flinching. "Is there a problem?" She paused, clearly processing the information, her eyes narrowing slightly. Instead of answering, she took a step back and spoke. Laura spoke into her radio, requesting a background check on Daniel's license and vehicle registration. Daniel waited silently, feeling a familiar unease growing. He knew he had done nothing wrong, yet these moments were always tense reminders of deeper issues he had fought against his entire career. Laura returned, a stern expression fixed on her face. "Sir, step out of the car for me." Daniel's heart skipped a beat, yet he remained calm. "Officer, may I ask why?" Her voice was firm, commanding. I won't ask again. Slowly and carefully, Daniel stepped out into the chilly evening air, maintaining a composed demeanor despite his internal discomfort. Laura directed him toward the rear of his vehicle, placing her hand cautiously near her holster, a gesture not unnoticed by Daniel. "Hands on the trunk, please," she instructed sharply. Daniel complied silently, acutely aware of the implications of this moment. As he stood there, the glare of passing headlights and distant sounds of the city seemed to fade, replaced only by the reality unfolding around him. Neither Daniel nor Laura noticed another patrol car arriving quietly on the scene. Officer Adam Brooks stepped out, immediately recognizing Daniel from several courthouse interactions. His face registered immediate concern, sensing something was terribly wrong with the unfolding scenario. Laura continued her procedure, unaware of Adam's silent presence. Daniel, however, sensed the tension escalating dangerously, understanding that his distinguished reputation might not protect him tonight from Officer Bennett's misguided assumptions. Officer Adam Brooks quietly stepped closer, concern clearly visible on his face as he assessed the unfolding scene. Recognizing Judge Daniel Harris, Adam's heart sank. He knew immediately something wasn't right. He cleared his throat gently, drawing Officer Laura Bennett's attention. "Officer Bennett," Adam said cautiously, keeping his voice calm and respectful, "I believe this gentleman is Judge Daniel Harris. I've seen him several times at the courthouse." Laura turned sharply, clearly caught off guard. Her eyes darted between Daniel and Adam, skepticism still evident in her expression. "Are you sure?" Laura questioned, her voice edged with uncertainty and defensiveness. He was driving aggressively. Adam nodded politely but firmly. "Positive. Judge Harris is highly respected. I doubt he would pose any risk." Daniel remained quiet, maintaining a composed stance despite feeling humiliated. His experience taught him that confrontation or impatience would only escalate tensions further. Instead, he patiently awaited Laura's response, fully aware that this moment would reveal her true intentions. Laura hesitated, her confidence visibly wavering. "Let me run his information again," she muttered reluctantly, returning to her patrol car. Daniel turned slightly toward Adam, offering a subtle nod of gratitude. Adam responded with a brief, sympathetic smile, clearly uncomfortable with his colleague's behavior, but unsure how far to intervene. Daniel understood Adam was walking a delicate line between loyalty and justice. After a tense minute, Laura returned from her vehicle, her face tight and unreadable. "Judge Harris," she addressed Daniel curtly, her tone still guarded, "you're clear to go." There was a misunderstanding. Daniel nodded slowly, his voice steady and respectful. "I understand. And officer, thank you." As Laura turned away, clearly embarrassed and frustrated, Daniel calmly adjusted his suit and moved toward his car. He knew he had done nothing wrong, yet the humiliation of the situation lingered heavily. These incidents were exactly why he had dedicated his life to justice and reform. Tonight only reinforced his resolve. Before Daniel entered his vehicle, Adam approached him quietly. "Judge Harris," Adam said sincerely, "I apologize for what just happened. It shouldn't have occurred." Daniel offered a gentle yet firm smile. "Thank you, Officer Brooks. Your support means a lot. But this is why the work we do matters. Change doesn't come easily." Adam nodded, his expression a mix of regret and determination. "You're right, sir. I'll make sure this doesn't happen again, not on my watch." Daniel gave a final nod before sliding into his car. As he drove away, the weight of the evening pressed heavily on him. But so did his resolve. He knew the road to justice was long, but moments like these only strengthened his commitment to the cause. Daniel responded, "Thank you, Officer Brooks." Situations like these remind us all why we must keep working toward fairness and accountability. Adam nodded solemnly, clearly impacted by Daniel's measured words. Daniel drove away, determined to turn this painful experience into something meaningful. He knew the road to true justice required patience, courage, and an unwavering commitment to change. Daniel drove home quietly, the hum of the car filling the uneasy silence around him. Despite being cleared, the unsettling encounter with Officer Bennett lingered. As he approached a traffic light, Daniel's phone buzzed with notifications. At first, he ignored them, but as the alerts grew persistent, curiosity compelled him to check. Pulling into a nearby parking lot, Daniel scrolled through messages rapidly filling his screen. His heart skipped a beat. A video of his encounter with Officer Bennett was rapidly spreading across social media. It was clear, sharp footage captured by a bystander, highlighting the tense exchange and Laura's behavior toward him. Daniel paused, replaying the moment. The comments poured in, expressing shock and demanding accountability. Daniel exhaled slowly, mixed emotions swirling within him. Though he appreciated the public support, the sudden spotlight felt overwhelming. His entire career had revolved around seeking justice, but now he found himself unexpectedly at the center of that same struggle. The phone rang abruptly, interrupting his thoughts. It was his longtime friend and mentor, Chief Justice Elena Davis. "Daniel," Elena began gently, her voice filled with genuine concern. "I've seen the video. Are you all right?" "I'm okay, Elena," Daniel replied calmly, though his voice betrayed fatigue. "Just processing everything." Elena sighed audibly. "We need to address this swiftly. The department can't ignore this. It's time to use this unfortunate incident to push for real accountability." Daniel nodded, though she couldn't see it. "I agree, but I also want this handled respectfully. We have an opportunity to educate and build understanding rather than just punish." "I admire your perspective," Elena responded warmly. "This is exactly why people trust you. I'll support whatever approach you think is best." Ending the call, Daniel reflected on Elena's words. Despite the distress of the encounter, he recognized the potential positive outcome. Perhaps this painful moment could help spark genuine dialogue and lasting change. Meanwhile, Officer Laura Bennett sat alone at her desk, eyes fixed on the same video now dominating the internet. Her face burned with embarrassment and frustration. She hadn't intended things to escalate, but now the situation was spiraling beyond her control. Anxiety tightened her chest as she read the mounting criticism directed toward her actions. Across town, the young man who recorded the incident, Jamal Parker, watched the video's view count soar. Jamal felt a sense of cautious pride. His instinct to film the interaction could bring justice and awareness. Still, he couldn't help but worry about potential backlash. As the night grew deeper, each person involved pondered the implications of the viral video. None of them could predict the profound impact this event would soon have on their lives and community. The following morning, Daniel arrived at the courthouse, feeling a mixture of apprehension and determination. The viral video had exploded overnight, sparking nationwide debate. Reporters were already gathered outside, their cameras trained on Daniel as he walked calmly toward the building. Inside, Daniel found Chief Justice Elena Davis waiting in her office. Her expression was stern but supportive. "This has become bigger than we expected," Elena said quietly, handing Daniel a folder filled with official documents. "Internal Affairs is launching an immediate investigation into Officer Bennett's actions. This video can't be ignored." Daniel took a deep breath, his mind racing. "I understand, but I want to ensure this doesn't turn into a witch hunt. Laura Bennett made a mistake, but this is also a chance for us to address systemic issues, not just individual ones." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "You're right, Daniel. This is bigger than one officer. It's about the culture of policing and the biases that still exist. But we need to act decisively to restore public trust." Daniel agreed. "Let's use this moment to push for transparency and accountability. I'll draft a statement addressing the incident and calling for meaningful reform." Elena smiled faintly. "That's why you're the right person for this moment, Daniel. Your voice carries weight, and people trust you to lead with integrity." As Daniel left Elena's office, he felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The road ahead would be challenging, but he was determined to turn this painful experience into an opportunity for real change. Daniel nodded slowly, absorbing her words carefully. "I understand, but let's ensure this process is fair for everyone involved, including Officer Bennett." Elena regarded him thoughtfully, appreciating his balanced approach. Absolutely. But this incident highlights deeper issues within the department. It's an opportunity to address systemic problems openly and constructively. Minutes later, Daniel and Elena entered a packed conference room where police department officials and city leaders awaited. Officer Laura Bennett sat quietly, visibly tense, avoiding eye contact with Daniel. Her previous confidence now appeared shaken. The lead internal affairs investigator, Captain Sarah Mitchell, began presenting the case clearly and objectively, referencing previous misconduct complaints against Officer Bennett. Laura's expression tightened further as each detail emerged, revealing a troubling pattern of behavior. Captain Mitchell concluded decisively, given the evidence, Officer Bennett is suspended pending a thorough review. We're committed to transparency and accountability in this investigation. The room murmured quietly, the gravity of the situation palpable. Daniel felt relief mixed with sadness. Justice was necessary, yet the human cost was undeniable. Outside the courthouse afterward, Daniel approached the young man, Jamal Parker, who had recorded the video. Jamal stood nervously, clearly unsure how Daniel would react. Daniel extended his hand warmly. "Thank you, Jamal. Your bravery in filming the incident made a difference." Jamal shook Daniel's hand firmly, relieved and proud. "I just felt it was the right thing to do, sir." Daniel smiled genuinely, his voice reassuring. "And it was. Keep standing up for what's right. We need more young people like you." As Daniel left the courthouse, reporters swarmed eagerly, asking for his reaction. He paused briefly, his voice steady and thoughtful. "This incident underscores the importance of accountability and fairness in our society," Daniel declared firmly. "It's a call for all of us to work together, addressing injustice wherever we find it, with patience and understanding." Daniel walked away, feeling hopeful. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, but today marked a critical step toward genuine change. 2 weeks later, Daniel returned to the courthouse for Officer Laura Bennett's final disciplinary session. The public interest remained intense, and the courtroom was packed with journalists, community leaders, and concerned citizens. Daniel took a seat near Chief Justice Elena Davis, feeling both relief and a profound sense of responsibility. Officer Bennett sat rigidly at the defense table, visibly anxious but determined to remain composed. Captain Sarah Mitchell stepped forward, summarizing the findings of the thorough internal investigation clearly and impartially. The investigation confirmed that Officer Bennett violated department policies related to conduct and fairness, Captain Mitchell stated. Multiple prior incidents suggest a troubling pattern that requires serious corrective measures. The room grew silent. Daniel watched Officer Bennett carefully, noting her visible discomfort as her career hung in the balance. After a brief deliberation, the disciplinary panel announced their decision. Officer Laura Bennett will be permanently relieved of her duties with the department. Additionally, she will undergo mandatory sensitivity training and counseling. These actions emphasize our commitment to maintaining public trust and accountability. A hushed murmur spread throughout the courtroom. Daniel felt an emotional weight lift slightly, understanding justice was being served. But he also felt compassion for Officer Bennett. Her errors had cost her greatly, yet he hoped this would become a moment of growth rather than mere punishment. As the session concluded, Daniel approached Officer Bennett. Their eyes met briefly, hers filled with uncertainty. "Officer Bennett," Daniel said calmly and respectfully, "I genuinely hope you find peace and clarity moving forward. Mistakes don't define us. How we respond to them does." Laura hesitated before quietly replying, "Thank you, Judge Harris. I regret what happened. I'll take this as an opportunity to learn." Daniel nodded appreciatively, believing in the power of redemption and growth. Outside the courthouse, Daniel stood beside Chief Justice Elena Davis, addressing reporters eager for his comments. "Today's outcome reminds us all of the necessity for accountability and transparency within law enforcement," Daniel said firmly. "However, this isn't about condemning one individual. It's about improving the entire system." As reporters dispersed, Jamal Parker approached Daniel, smiling warmly. Judge Harris, seeing justice actually happen today gives me hope, Jamal said. Daniel placed a reassuring hand on Jamal's shoulder. Remember, Jamal, real justice means we continually strive for fairness. Your courage helped create positive change. Keep speaking up. Daniel walked away with a renewed sense of purpose. This challenging experience reinforced his belief that change was possible, not through anger or division, but through understanding, accountability, and persistent efforts toward justice. Weeks later, in the weeks following the disciplinary hearing, Daniel noticed a noticeable shift within the community. Conversations about accountability, transparency, and racial equality became more common, not just in courtrooms and police stations, but also in coffee shops, schools, and dining tables across the city. Daniel felt encouraged by these developments. The painful experience had sparked a genuine dialogue. One Sunday afternoon, Daniel visited a local community center where he had been invited to speak to young adults about civic engagement. As he entered, he saw Jamal Parker among the attendees, smiling warmly in recognition. Daniel addressed the group with heartfelt honesty. "Justice isn't achieved overnight," he explained calmly, making eye contact with each listener. "It requires persistence, courage, and compassion. Every voice matters, yours included. Don't underestimate your ability to create positive change." After the session, Jamal approached Daniel with visible enthusiasm. "Judge Harris, I've decided to pursue law. I want to make a difference like you." Daniel's eyes shone with genuine pride. "Jamal, the world needs dedicated individuals like you. Remember, the law is powerful, but true justice comes from those who wield it responsibly and compassionately." Jamal nodded eagerly. "I'll remember that. Thank you for showing me that one person really can make a difference." Leaving the community center, Daniel felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He reflected on his career, understanding that despite challenges, he had a duty and privilege to continue advocating for fairness and equality. He knew the road ahead was long and complex, but each step mattered. Later that evening, Daniel watched a news segment summarizing recent policy reforms initiated due to his encounter with Officer Bennett. Police departments across the city had begun implementing mandatory sensitivity and de-escalation training programs. Transparency measures, such as body camera regulations and public oversight committees, were also being discussed earnestly. Daniel smiled softly, realizing that from discomfort and adversity, meaningful change had emerged. He understood clearly now that his difficult experience wasn't in vain. It had served as a catalyst for progress. Reflecting deeply, Daniel renewed his commitment to justice, not merely as a profession, but as a lifelong mission. He knew real change required patience, dialogue, and persistent hope. With this conviction, Daniel Harris continued forward, optimistic that future generations would benefit from the seeds of understanding and justice planted today. This powerful journey reminds us all of an essential truth. Meaningful change is possible when we approach injustice with courage, compassion, and persistence. Daniel's experience highlights the importance of accountability and transparency within our communities and law enforcement, demonstrating that even difficult moments can spark significant positive transformations. What do you think about Daniel's story? Have you ever witnessed or experienced a moment that led to positive change? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your stories. If you found inspiration or learned something valuable today, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more empowering stories about justice, fairness, and real-world change. Remember, your voice matters, and together we can continue making a difference. Thanks for watching, stay informed, stay involved, and we'll see you in the next video.